Everyone wants to unlock the mysteries of the mind in order
Mhm.
to improve ourselves, don't we?
Absolutely.
So we all kind of throw ourselves into hours and hours and hours of self-reflection, meditation, breath work, drugs, whatever you're into. We talked about that over the last year over the
Mhm.
show, right?
Yep.
But what if there was a way to tap into your absolute potential without having to spend years and years and years and years and years in quiet contemplation and isolation?
Well, that would be fantastic.
Right? Well,
Yes.
our next guest knows exactly how to do that, and he's going to share that secret with us. This is one you don't want to miss. My name is Will,
And I'm Karen.
and unlike Mulder and Scully,
We both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the
Skeptic
Skeptic Metaphysicians. Welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. I'm Will.
I'm Karen.
And today we have the absolute pleasure to introduce to you a gentleman by the name of John Moyer. John has discovered the power and ability of the mind and shares his knowledge to his 230,000 subscribers on YouTube. And we're about to find out what that secret is. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having, and I have to say, it's you guys have such a nice kind of contrast there. You look tan and well rested, and here I am. I've got the afternoon sun making me look very pale, but maybe it's a good metaphor for the contrast and whatever we might discuss today.
Well, you might have found the power of the mind, but we found the power of the lighting.
Very true.
Now, before we learn what the secret to accessing the power of our minds is, John, tell us where you were before you found out and what brought you to the realization that you had actually found it.
My experience was I had been doing stand-up comedy professionally for 20 plus years. And, I graduated from theater and film school, and along the way, I had some independent screenplays produced. And the thing is, being on stage, that live experience, interaction with an audience really, was my passion. And the thing was, is when you study screenwriting, when you learn about screenwriting, the notion is that all drama is conflict, right? So you're not going to have Home Alone if the kid's not left home alone and there's not burglars trying to break in the house. So I kind of applied that template to my stand-up comedy, where it was the more dysfunctional and the more drama and conflict that I had in my personal life, the more jokes I could make about it and be funny on stage. But the thing that I experienced was that while I was able to make people laugh on stage, my personal life, was a train wreck. And I was probably in one of the darkest holes that I had ever experienced personally in my life. I wound up going through divorce. I was a single father of two young boys, dating all the wrong women. And what wound up happening was is that I was performing at an event. It was this all-day event with different activities, and I performed my stand-up show, and the venue that I was in, maybe half full, it was an okay audience. There was a tepid response. But then right after me, and I realized this, they had a stage hypnotist. And for, the venue being half full for me, it was like standing room only to see the stage hypnosis show. And that ego mind of, the comedian, you're a little resentful, you're a little jealous, and especially as I watched his show, the audience was engaged, volunteers were hypnotized, and then after the fact, people are running up and throwing money to buy his CDs for weight loss and stop smoking. And I went, you know what? I could do that. I was looking for a way to reinvent myself professionally. And I just, of course, had to learn how to hypnotize people, which I did. And as I began the stage hypnosis show and I began experiencing, what hypnosis was able to create for an individual, I thought, well, you know what? I can use that to maybe clean up some of my dysfunction and some of my drama. And as I did, then it was like everything changed. It was like night and day. Professionally, everything took off for me. And personally, I was in a happy, well adjusted place.
Wow. So I guess it kind of let the cat out of the bag, right? The secret is hypnosis, but it goes a lot further than just what you mentioned, stage hypnosis, right? We've all seen the guy who acts like a chicken or the person who
Yeah.
says he can't dance, things like that. But you take that and you go so much further into it than what people have seen on stage as a hypnosis show, which you do also, but you use that tool in other ways that really are helpful in lots and lots of ways.
Yeah. Well, when you're when I was doing the stage hypnosis show or doing the stage hypnosis show, you want rapport with the audience. And of course, you want people to come up and volunteer on stage, right? So you want to incentivize the audience members to come up and participate. So, one of the things I do as I'm setting up, the pre-frame for the show is letting people kind of understand what hypnosis is, dispelling some myths, let them know what to expect, what they can not expect, and like any negative elements that people might kind of perceive to be the experience of hypnosis. But I also tell them, look, if you are looking to achieve a goal, if there's something in your life that you want to have, do, or be to increase the quality of your life, when you come up on stage, keep that in mind because what we do tonight will allow you to be empowered to, achieve your goals. And, I always tell the audience, we're never going to discuss that. I don't make a joke out of people's goals, but that remains between them and their subconscious mind. But the experience of being on stage, they're able to walk away kind of tuned up and empowered to realize how they can use their mind for their greater good instead of working against them.
So there are so many preconceived notions when it comes to hypnosis. Well, at least for me.
Yeah,
What I've never been hypnotized. And you've heard some people say, well, you're really aware of what's going on, but it's a little funky. Other people say they don't remember anything.
right.
What really is the experience of someone being hypnotized?
It's really unique to every individual person. Now, interestingly enough, there was a time when I thought, I could never be hypnotized. No way, not gonna happen. And then I experienced it. And then you're just like, "Oh my god, this feels amazing. This is really a profound feeling." And experiencing hypnosis is, it's like working a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You go into the gym, you're not gonna suddenly, lift all these intense amount of heavy weights, but with practice and continual repetition, you're able to build that muscle up. It's the same thing with being able to build your mind up relative, to hypnosis. So the experience for people is very unique. Some people, when all is said and done, it's kind of like, a dream. Maybe you don't remember all the details. It's a little blurry, and then bits and pieces come back to you. Other people will say, I was aware of everything that was happening the entire time, but I just felt so good that, man, I was just flowing with it. So it can be a very, there's not a black and white cut and dry experience for everybody. It's unique to the person.
And I promise we're going to get to all the benefits of hypnosis in the journey that we are all on in a second. But we kind of have to set the stage a little bit because you hear a lot about hypnosis and there's a lot of misconceptions about it.
Mhm.
Like one of the things I've heard and I've known about hypnosis is that they say you can't hypnotize anyone. You can't make someone do something that they wouldn't normally do anyway, right? So you can't force someone to act like a chicken if the person is averse to being seen as a chicken.
Why is it always a chicken? That's my question. It's always a chicken.
Somebody at some hypnotist somewhere, that was his must have been his big closing finale that everybody just started ripping off. But yeah, you're right. Well, when it comes to the subconscious mind, that part of our, our moral code or our moral compass is so deeply ingrained in us that, I can't hypnotize somebody to go rob a bank unless, of course, they're actually a bank robber. And, and even to a smaller degree that some people might go, oh, that's not such a big deal. But I love telling the story about, I have a friend and colleague, and he was actually the hypnotist that I had seen perform that I'm like, I want to do this. And then he and I have become really good friends. But he was doing a show one time and, had a group of volunteers and, the ones that really stand out, you kind of refer to them as the stars of the show, right? They're the people that do experience hypnosis and, but their personality is so engaging that they really shine on the stage. So here was a guy that was just participating in every skit, going along, getting big laughs. And then for my buddy's one of his finales, he told this volunteer that he was going to dance like Michael Jackson. So he goes, when you hear the music, your eyes will open up, you start to dance like Michael Jackson. Music began to play, guy didn't move, didn't open his eyes,
Uh,
nothing happened, right? And my buddy's like, "This is so weird." He was doing everything else. After the show, my buddy interacted with a volunteer, and the volunteer told him that he was whatever, religious belief or persuasion that they felt that dancing was inappropriate, right? You don't do that in public.
Yeah.
So just a small little thing like dancing, his moral code for him was so strong, like he's not gonna dance in public.
it's funny. I've got a note to ask you about this later on, but may as well bring it up now. There was a point in time when, gasp, I was a smoker. I know, shocker. I was a smoker, and there was I don't remember exactly when or how the circumstances were, but I ended up going to a group presentation that a hypnotist was doing. And he actually got us to go into such a deep hypnotic state, and I've talked about it on the show before, where I've actually felt like I was floating
Yeah.
in oblivion, in complete bliss, and it was amazing. So at the end of it, I went up to the guy and said, "Hey, I wanna quit smoking. Can you help me with that?" And he said, I don't know, give me your cigarettes. Like, let's get rid of your cigarettes right now." And I hesitated. And just that slight hesitation, he said, "You're not ready."
Yeah.
What do you mean you're not ready? I wanna quit, but when I asked you to give me your cigarettes and get rid of them right now, you weren't ready for that. Until you are 100% ready to get rid of those cigarettes, there's nothing I can do that's gonna help you to do that. Is that been your experience?
Yeah, that's exactly one of the things that I say to anybody that talks about utilizing hypnosis for stop smoking, because that drive to want to quit has got to be stronger than the drive, to smoke that cigarette. So there's a little bit of internal play there and some internal accountability that deserves to happen, for somebody to be able to make that changeover. I was doing a show at one point, and I knew that there were people, volunteers on the stage that actually were smokers. There was a lot of them hanging out on the patio outside of the venue, chain smoking cigarettes before the show. So there was a woman on stage. I knew she was a smoker, and I told her, the next time you go to smoke a cigarette, it's going to taste like gasoline burning in your mouth. And it was one of those, you give somebody a post hypnotic suggestion at the end of the show. So when the show's over, there's still kind of some things that are happening in the audience. So this woman goes outside after the show to smoke a cigarette. Of course, people come out and they're watching her. She lights up a cigarette from her pack, and she starts coughing and gagging and spitting. And she's like, "What the hell's wrong with my cigarette?" She takes another one out. Same thing. She's coughing, choking, and gagging. My cigarettes are jacked up. She bums a cigarette from somebody else. She has the same experience smoking that cigarette, but she smoked the entire cigarette, coughing, gagging, spitting, and choking the entire time, because her, her drive to smoke that cigarette well outweighed, the negative experiences that she was having at that time.
Now, does that experience eventually wear off to her, or is she forever now?
No, well, again, that's one of those things that's, when it comes to a post-hypnotic suggestion, something that is really kind of, maybe kind of designed to be kind of, more silly and fun. Yeah, that stuff kind of drifts off and drifts away, because that's kind of more out there within the realm of, a person's experience. But I did have a woman one time when I was on the cruise ship, and when you're on the cruise ship, I would only do 2 shows in one night, but I was typically on the cruise ship for maybe the entire cruise or several days. So you continue to see people that were part of the show. I had a woman come up to me. She said, "Look, I was at your show, and this was me." And I remembered who she was, because she was one of those stars of the show. And she said, "I wasn't even gonna come up and volunteer, but you told me that we could empower ourselves with a goal that, we want to achieve." And she goes, "My driving motivation, my goal was," she goes, "I'm a chocoholic, and chocolate actually controls my life and overrides everything else. So I know that I deserve to give up chocolate." She goes, "So that's what I had in mind when I participated in the show." She says, "It's been 3 days. I haven't had any chocolate since." She goes, "My friends can't believe it, because there's literally all you can eat chocolate everywhere on the ship." And it was a kind of an interesting story, and, excited to hear it. I hadn't talked to her. I think it was in 3 or 4 years ago when that happened, and then she reached out to me on Facebook a few months ago, and she said, "Remember me? Still no chocolate the entire time. One experience, one
Wow.
suggestion, and I was done."
That's incredible.
Can everyone get hypnotized, or not enough
Yeah,
people
because
hypnotized?
it's actually a natural biological process of the human mind. It's built
Really?
into the way we're designed. So what happens is, you've got different brainwave states, right? Your brainwaves operate faster than down to slower. So the majority of the time during the day, you're in what's called a beta brainwave state, kind of your conscious waking state. Of course, when you fall asleep at night, those brainwaves slow down from a beta down into an alpha and a theta. That's kind of where you toggle back and forth. It's kind of a dreamlike state, and then down into deep delta. Well, hypnosis and meditation are within those alpha and theta brainwave states. So when you experience those brainwave states, you're in a state of hypnosis. So it's like with my kids, sometimes I try to talk to my kids when they're staring at their screen. They're so focused on that, they're oblivious, to everything else that's, going on around them. That's kind of a form of hypnosis we go through every day. When you're watching TV or you're reading a book, you're so focused and engrossed on that everything else kind of becomes, oblivious to you. So it is a state that we all experience, and it's just about, relative to hypnosis, learning to intentionally trigger and activate that state so we can, actually kind of control it and use it for a good rather than just drifting through it.
So would that also be when you're kind of sleeping, but you can hear sounds?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah.
incorporate that into your dream? Okay.
It's kind of that, yeah, it's kind of
That makes
that same mental process or brainwave process.
Okay, so then if we've established the fact that you can't really make any changes inside yourself unless you truly want to, how does this correlate with the self-improvement stuff? If I can say to myself 1,000 times, I want to be a less angry man, and I go through your program and I get hypnotized, you put a hypnotic suggestion in me that says I'm going to be a happy-go-lucky guy for the rest of my life. If I don't truly want to be a happy-go-lucky guy, is that going to work for me?
I think what I would say is yes and no for that because, and let me kind of explain the analogy that I use to look at hypnosis. When it comes to hypnosis, you've got the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and between those two elements of your mind is a built-in firewall. It's called the critical faculty. I liken the critical faculty to the bouncer outside of a nightclub who's in charge of the red velvet rope, who determines who gets in and who doesn't get in.
I hate that guy.
So so what's happening with hypnosis is you're distracting the critical faculty, you're distracting that part of your mind, the bouncer with the red velvet rope. So when that element of your mind is not paying attention and looking away, you can then sneak in suggestions, to your subconscious mind. And it does go to the fact that, everybody, is different. Obviously, it's advantageous to somebody if their mindset is, look, I already understand that this is not working for me, and I am preferring to choose out of this behavior. That is actually, I mean, that's certainly a really powerful catalyst going in. But at the same time, there's something to be said for, the law of attrition. If something keeps getting into the subconscious mind, it can pick it up and then all of a sudden start acting, upon that.
So then what kinds of, changes have you seen in someone that could be used with hypnosis?
Well, the thing is that our subconscious mind is essentially, it's our operating system, right? It's all of our computer programming. It's a lifetime of information and patterns that have been poured into our subconscious mind. And the thing is that's what that's what we look for. We look for patterns, identify things, and then our subconscious mind gives them, meaning. And, the reality of it is like Joe Dispenza says, we're living in the residual outcome of our past thoughts, experiences, and behaviors. So if you get into the subconscious mind, and the thing about the subconscious mind too is keep in mind the conscious mind is the mind that makes judgment and reason. You're able to look at things and analyze them and go, okay, this makes sense or this doesn't. But the subconscious mind doesn't make those kind of judgments. It's not, it doesn't weigh, reality versus non-reality or what makes sense or what doesn't. The subconscious mind just says, this is connected to this. So if it's a case where a certain set of experiences show up for somebody and their subconscious mind identifies those as patterns that mean we're supposed to be scared or stressed or worried or afraid, that's what we're going to feel right now. That's how we're going to respond right now. So what you do with it, hypnosis, you're going in there, you're disconnecting those connections to those patterns, you're scrambling those patterns, and then what you're doing is taking those patterns and then reconnecting them to a more empowered emotional state, a more empowered mental and even spiritual state. So when somebody goes into a situation that normally would freak them out or normally intimidate them or make them feel uncomfortable or scared, that when they go into that situation now, when you anchor the new information and the new emotional state with those patterns, the subconscious mind is going to go, oh man, there's nothing here to be stressed about. We feel calm. We feel relaxed. In fact, we feel like we can speak our voice, share our opinion, and, hold our own.
So it sounds like it would be so therapeutic. You could probably even do couples therapy. Just hypnotize them apart from each other to,
You will love each other.
be kind.
So then how does this tie in with the thought that we are more than just our minds?
Mhm.
When people talk about souls and past lives, and now Brian K. Weiss, Dr. Weiss, who we've talked about on the show before, that actually hypnotized his patients into going much further than he ever expected to, and
Yeah.
took them to past lives. First, is that something that you have experience with? If so, how does it work? And if not, what are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I probably, I have a really, a pretty big open mind, and I'm the first person that when somebody says, "Hey, there was a UFO, or there was this experience, or this paranormal experience," I'm the first one to go, "Okay, all right, tell me more." And at the same time, I might go, this and that. Um, I've actually had a past life experience. I was, when I went through my certification with the National Guild of Hypnotists, and part of the coursework, we did some past life experience. Now, it was interesting for me because, first of all, I grew up in Jersey, and for whatever reason, I was always fascinated by the mafia. Like when I read the book The Godfather, and then the movie, like in this, I was just enthralled by this. Now, when I did the past life regression, I actually was taken back to a time period when I was, a button man, as they call it, a soldier in a mafia family in Chicago in the 1930s. Now, I go, okay, that was interesting. But at the same time, I go, was that real, or was that something that, my mind was just, creating for me? So relative to me, I don't, I go, I'm open, but I'm not sure either way. Yet there have been really, intense documented experiences of people who experience hypnosis, and man, they recall this, factual, information. So, I'm open to say, hey man, wow, that can be a real thing. But, when you look at it in the bigger perspective, when you're gonna talk about, not, spiritually, or, the soul or whatnot, I always tell people that, there's when it comes to hypnosis, there's 2 groups of people. You've got the, Newtonian physics people who believe, I have to physically interact with something to be able to, move it, or, make change. So if you experience hypnosis from that perspective, then you're going to naturally experience thoughts and behaviors and actions that will allow you to physically interact and change your environment. The other group of people, I call them, the quantum physics, the law of attraction people. And, for those people, when you come from the mindset of, everything is energy, and what we're putting out there resonates with the world around us, and then kind of repels and, attracts like. Um, I've seen, results, with people relative to that. And one of the interesting things that I didn't even realize, I just found this out a few months ago, the pineal gland, we all have, this pineal gland within our brain, but it's got calcite crystals within it. And these calcite crystals have piezoelectric properties akin to the same thing as like a radio broadcast, signal. So it's like scientists figured out, well, man, there's part of us inside of us that has these broadcast, capabilities. It's like, when you're watching birds, and like birds are able to just move like and flow in an instant, and the same direction with a flock of birds. They understand that that's relative to their kind of, their internal broadcast signal and radar signal. And so it's the same thing for us. So whichever camp somebody comes from, when they experience hypnosis, they're going to realize that there's a benefit. And especially when it comes to like law of attraction people, thing is consciously we process, if you put it in terms of, computer processing, consciously we process about 7 to 10 bits of information per second. Subconsciously, we're processing about 20 million bits of information per second. So there's so much more happening on a subconscious level. So when I talk to these people about, law of attraction, if I think about $1 million, I'll have $1 million, or whatever the case may be. And I go, it's not exactly like that, because what happens is consciously, like maybe we go to a book or we read a book, we go to a seminar, we see a movie, something that inspires us. We go consciously goes, man, this makes sense. Yes, I'm going to do this and it'll change my life. And then a few days later, a week later, you're back to the same old patterns of behavior again. That's because consciously something makes sense and you try to focus on something consciously. But underneath in those 20 million bits of information per second, the subconscious mind goes, of course it makes sense for everybody else and not for us. Because for us, past has proven us nothing works out for us. We're not successful. We can't do anything right, et cetera, and so forth. And that's the operating pattern that you come from on a subconscious level, whether you realize it, or not. So when it comes to the law of attraction, people, it's like you've got to begin to deeply embed this within your subconscious mind. So it's like they say you've got unconscious incompetence when you don't realize how bad you are at something. Then it's conscious competence, when you real or conscious incompetence when you go, okay, now I realize how bad I am at something, which then shifts to conscious competence where you're like, I have to think about being good at this. Then that shifts to unconscious competence when you're just naturally operating from that state where you're able to, successfully achieve something or do something.
And you can help people achieve that with hypnosis?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of that well, it's like they say 21 days, to
To
form
make
a
a
habit.
habit.
Yeah.
If you do something consistently over and over again consciously, then that can, that'll become ingrained in your subconscious mind. The nice thing about hypnosis, it's kind of that fast track. It's that
Like
unlocking that door, getting right in, and then making those changes in a faster and an even more effective way.
Right. And for those that haven't listened to our episode about the law of attraction, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man, Benji Shearer shared with us. He kind of bridged the gap between the Newtonian mechanics or Newtonian physics and quantum mechanics in a way that it made perfect sense. And what you're saying mirrors exactly what he was saying because you have to go beyond just wishing it into existence, right? You have to feel the emotions. You have to subconsciously, you have to know that what you are wanting to make happen is something that's already within you, already inside you. And hypnosis, I can imagine, like you said, it moves that damn bouncer out the way.
Yeah, yeah, and, just kind of a little aside on, your comment there. I've come to learn that, instead of saying, "I want something," or "Somebody wants this," or "I want that," there's a lot to be said for the language that your subconscious mind is hearing. So for me, especially when I put out, meditations for a particular theme or hypnosis for a particular theme, I share with people to stop using the word want and start using the word prefer. Because if you say, again, let's just use the money analogy, I want $1 million, your subconscious mind says, hey, we don't have $1 million. We're in a place that makes us want $1 million. But then if you say, I prefer $1 million, then all of a sudden your subconscious mind picks up, oh, we prefer this to be this way. We prefer this to be this way, and starts to operate from a state of, identical and matching the kind of person that prefers something to be a certain way versus the person who is wanting or coming from a space of neediness within their subconscious mind.
100%. Absolutely. The want is going to keep you wanting. But they say that the universe gives you exactly what it is that you're asking for. And words absolutely have power.
Yeah,
So if you,
wanting is never having.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the universe is going to say, okay, you want to want. Here you go. Keep wanting. So it keeps it just out of reach. It makes
Mhm.
perfect sense to me. You mentioned using this sort of thing for meditations. I've always kind of felt that meditations are kind of they're like a form of self hypnosis, right?
Mhm.
Or if you have a guided meditation, they're kind of bringing you into a type of a hypnotic state. Is there any danger? You hear about meditation tapes coming out of every nook and cranny. Should someone be careful about what exactly they let program their minds?
Well, well, first of all, to kind of, talk about meditation and hypnosis, they're sister states of mind, right? So you're going from the beta brainwave state down into the alpha and the theta brainwave state. So mentally and physically, you're experiencing, the same thing. And, I think the traditional form of meditation, it's kind of been assigned with the concept of sitting quietly, not or trying not to think thoughts, that sort of thing. But, kind of over the years, your term guided meditation, which is somebody talking you through something, which is kind of the same thing as, as hypnosis. So you hear a lot of these things, especially when it comes to like YouTube, they're all interchangeable, guided hypnosis meditation, guided hypnosis, sleep meditation. But to answer your question, well, the one thing that I always tell people is that if you're looking to experience this, experiment, see, kind of what resonates with you as far as a style, a program, a hypnotist, a theme. And if that resonates with you, then obviously, you're going to know that. But going back to that moral compass, that firewall that we have inside of us, we're going to not allow something that would, radically go against, our moral code. And, when it comes to hypnosis and, in meditation, you can't get stuck in that mindset. You can't get stuck in hypnosis. That's one thing, that I hear people go, oh my gosh, what happens if I get stuck and never wake up? If you go into a hypnotic state and I were to walk away, one of two things will happen. You either fall asleep like you're taking a nap, or you'll wake up into a conscious state. So you're not going to get stuck. And then, of course, we've already kind of addressed, you're not going to turn over your control, to somebody else. But the thing about experiencing hypnosis and meditation is there are quantifiable, results, even especially immediately. You get done with something, you go, man, that made me feel great. I feel really positive, but I feel really good. And of course you might hear from somebody, I'll hear from, somebody on YouTube occasionally. It's like, oh, your voice creeped me out, or your voice did this to me. And like, all right, it's cool. That was your experience for whatever you've got linked up in your subconscious mind. Now you prefer to avoid my content.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you said that. Sorry, Karen, really quick. I'm glad you said, because those are the two things I've heard all the time. A, meditation is self hypnosis, and the guided meditations can actually lead you down the wrong path. The fact is, to your point, moral compass really doesn't allow you to do that
Right.
anyway. And the
Mhm.
second part that you said, where you can't get stuck in a hypnotic state. It is perfectly safe.
I want to know, how powerful can hypnosis be? So, Will has always wanted to astral project, but he can't. Is this something that you could, or with hypnosis, he would be able to tap into that ability?
Oh, good question, Karen.
Yes, actually it is. That's not an area that I've kind of had experience in, but I know that there have been, obviously a lot of people that have had this experience, including a very close friend of mine. So yes, you can utilize hypnosis to, experience that state. And kind of what you were talking a little bit about there, Kim, relative to how powerful hypnosis can be. And the interesting thing about hypnosis is, I mean, your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not on a subconscious level. Consciously, maybe you're watching a movie and it's really scary or it's really sad. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, you're stressed, if you feel scared, or you're upset because you feel sad, because on a subconscious level, your mind's making those connection and telling you what this means. So you physiologically have response as if it were something, that were real. It's like when you have a dream, no matter how bizarre the dream seems, while you're having that dream, you're like, all right, this just seems completely normal, that, whatever bizarre thing it is. And, one of the examples that I use, I had a woman on, one of my volunteers on stage one time. She was a medical doctor, and the suggestion that I gave her was that when she opened her eyes, she would experience the realization that her belly button was missing, and she's gonna wanna find her belly button. And it was one of these things where I'd given, multiple suggestions to different people throughout the volunteers. So when everybody opens their eyes, I'm on one side of the stage doing some stuff with, some of the volunteers, but yet you hear people in the audience, they're laughing and they're whispering and they're commenting, and I act like I don't know what's going on. But then I look over and I see this woman who's a doctor. She's up, she's looking under the chair, she's lifting up her shirt, she's touching her stomach. And I go, well, what's going on? And she goes, my belly button's missing. And she's looking around, and you can see this kind of this struggle within her mind. She goes, I am a medical doctor. This is impossible. This cannot be the case. But yet I've lost my belly button. And she's looking around.
Wow.
So her mind was, overriding, and she was having the experience that this was real. So now if you put that in the context of somebody looking to try to improve the quality of their life, if you tell your subconscious mind, you love going to the gym feels great, or, whatever the case may be, your subconscious mind is going to experience that as real for you, and then therefore begin to take that input and communicate it as an output that you act upon. Hey, I do love going to the gym. I do love working out. This is great. And that's kinda how it works as a catalyst for change.
All right, John. I think you and I are gonna have a conversation after this
A few.
because I hate going to the gym.
So, can you hypnotize yourself?
Yeah, yeah, and the way that that kinda began for me was I just started listening to, like, hypnosis and, meditation, programs, and it was the same way. It's like working the muscle that I built that up, and I could experience it to the point now when I sit down, like, every morning, every night, I'll do, a meditation where I'm sitting in the lotus position, right? And as soon as my body gets into that position, my subconscious mind immediately goes, "Oh, this is what this means. This is what this time is for, and this is how we'll experience that." And then just immediately, my mind starts to slow down and go into those states.
What about those people that, like Karen, has a difficult time stilling her mind enough to meditate? If someone hasn't had an ability or hasn't successfully been able to just be still, can they still have benefit from what you do?
Yeah, because, well, there are a couple of things with that. If we've conditioned our minds, especially in this day and age, with cell phones and the internet and social media, whatever, they conditioned our minds to feel like we constantly need some type of stimulation. It's like squirrel. We have to look over here. We have to look over here, or whatever the case may be. So when it comes to somebody that says, "Hey, I have a hard time quieting my mind," you start piecemeal. You start with, a shorter, meditation, a shorter experience. And again, you just gradually build that up and you go, "Oh, well, I can actually find myself being able to focus for, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes." And then all of a sudden, you can find yourself going, longer. And that was that way for me in the beginning. It's like, oh, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Man, this feels like, an eternity, right? And now I have no problem with, meditating for periods from 30, 45 to 60 minutes, and then actually feeling like that was only just a few minutes, which is actually, that's something that there is a time distortion when within your mind when you experience hypnosis where you don't realize the time, that's passed. So, yeah, but that's exactly how it happened for me, just a gradual piecemeal building up of the ability.
Now, could you use hypnosis to fast track someone to get to that state? Like, could you help them achieve that meditative state?
Someone's kind of impatient.
Oh, I'm just curious.
Well, the thing is that yeah, because you're conditioning. It's just a matter of conditioning. A person say, "Hey, I can experience this for a couple minutes," and then you're doing little things to try to anchor, within their subconscious mind, things from their external environment that also acts as an anchor or a suggestion, for people to be able to go and relax, faster and deeper. It's one of the, the kind of a common thing you might, especially when it comes to stage hypnosis, you'll hear a stage hypnotist say, any sounds that you hear around you will allow you to focus on my voice, and those sounds will help you relax even deeper. So, you're constantly creating various things that the subconscious mind can link up to, even in the, in the very early stages, that will continue to compound and escalate the hypnotic state.
So taking it back to Karen's question about self-hypnosis, that's really what you used to improve your circumstances in life, going right back to the very beginning of the interview.
Yeah.
You were able to use self-hypnosis in order to improve all of the circumstances that you were experiencing.
Yeah.
In stage hypnosis, it seems like you hypnotize someone in an instant, right? Where in meditation, you relax and
Mhm.
take your mind away, and after 20 minutes, and you finally maybe hit that theta wave. How can you instantly hypnotize someone in whether it's on a stage or in a consultation? You move much faster. There's something you do, like there's a button you press on someone's psyche or something.
Well, and the thing is if you're doing something, let's just say one-on-one, you're able to customize that, that experience to the individual. You would have spent a little bit of time before the session, kind of understanding, the individual's perspectives. And, even as you are talking to them, you're kind of evaluating them and you're calibrating them relative to your experience and knowing what approach would be the most ideal. And as you're in that one-on-one session, there's a feedback loop. You're able to see how the individual is responding and experience, and you can guide that accordingly. Now, when you do a stage hypnosis show, obviously I've got about 5 to, maybe 10 minutes to do that in, induction. And it is kind of like throwing mud up against a wall and, you're seeing what sticks, but you also allow yourself, having the experience of doing that, what kind of works for the masses in an environment like that. Now every audience is different. So if you get up in front of a group of people, if it's like a corporate event, and you're building rapport, I realize that I have to take an approach that's a little different, not just in how I'm presenting myself, but also how I am conducting, that group induction versus if I'm in front of a group of high school students or university students, they're used to kind of being told what to do. So I know when they come up on stage, I can take, a little bit more of an authoritarian, approach. And really when it does come to, stage hypnosis, it is kind of a numbers game. You want to attract the right kind of individuals that come up on stage. And then once you have those individuals, you're just you're moving really quickly, kind of putting it all out there, kind of as this, one size fits all approach.
Well, I think that John has been hypnotizing us throughout this interview. You know why?
Why?
Because he talked about a time dilation and it's already time to say goodbye.
I
And I don't know
know.
how the heck that happened. Final question. What do you say to people that say unequivocally hypnosis is not real?
You know what? You're allowed that experience. You're allowed to believe that experience. I'm not out to, try to prove, anybody wrong. The experience though for me that has been, and this is why I love doing corporate events, especially in particular, because after the show, you have people, I will inevitably always have people come up to me and go, I never believed in hypnosis. Now I know this is 100% real because I work next to that person and that person and that person every single day. I know how they work. I know how they operate. I know how their mindset is. And what I saw them experience up there is absolutely no way that they were faking. When you're on the cruise ship, it's like everybody's strangers, right? You have 500 people in the audience, and you'll have people go, "Well, I don't know that person, so is this real? Is it not?" But when you do it in a setting where people are working together all the time, then they're able to go, "Oh my gosh, this is real." And one really quick example of that is a few years ago, I did an event for it was a county sheriff's department. We are doing it was a holiday party, and they were a little bit of a rougher group, and they were a little bit harder to kind of get volunteers. But inevitably, you always have people pointing, "Oh, Bob, you go up," or "Dan, you go up." And they had a woman there. Her name was Barbara. Look, I don't remember what, but we'll just say Barbara. She was the head of their county jail. And they're all like, "Barbara, you need to go up. You need to go up." And normally I wouldn't encourage somebody to come up if they weren't feeling it because it goes back to, preferring, to have the experience. But volunteers were a little few and far between for that show. So I'm like, "Come on up, Barbara." And she walks up there and she was a tough woman. She was the head of the county jail. It's like you could just tell looking at her, you don't mess with her. And she's coming up on stage and she's like, "Oh, this is BS. This is ridiculous. And, this is
Did she
and
have that voice?
yeah." My wife is like, "Is that how they sound?" When I read YouTube comments, did they really sound like that when they were angry? But she closes her eyes and an hour later she opens up her eyes and she's like, "What the hell just happened to me?" And the audience was going nuts. After the show, they're showing her video that they filmed, and she goes, and it was one of those people that go, "I have no idea. I have no recollection of what just happened over the last hour." And everybody was like, "Oh my God, we know that woman." And There is no way she was faking that. So
Wow. Wow. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. We're going to put all of your information in our show notes. If you haven't checked out John Moyer, you need to go look at his YouTube videos because he's got some astounding videos on there. And we'll also put in your social media accounts on there as well as your website so people can reach out to you directly just by going to skepticmetaphysician.com, going to his episode page and clicking on the link. It's a one-stop shop. It's super easy. So, John, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your expertise with us.
thank you, Will and Karen. I really enjoyed this. It's been great. So thank you so much.
Right.
It has been. Thank you.
And thank you, listener, for coming along on this journey of discovery with us. Don't forget that you can find us on Facebook and Instagram under @Skeptic Metaphysicians. As always, if you know someone that would benefit from hearing the messages we shared on this show or any of our others, I hope you'll consider sharing us with that person. It will help grow the show and may just help someone else come to terms with the fact that we are so much more than just this three-dimensional body that we inhabit. Listening to the episode on the radio and missed anything? Not to worry. All of our shows, including this one, can be found on our site, skepticmetaphysician.com. And don't forget that you can become a member of the Skeptic Metaphysicians community for free and enjoy the added benefits of discounts for services from some of our past guests, as well as a chance to, of course, never miss a show immediately once it's been published. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have. That's all for now. We'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.